You could say that yesterday we had some interesting appearances here at the Nürburgring. But let's take it to the start. Good morning, comrades. It's a bit of a traffic jam here with lots of Porsches, especially Porsches with massive wings. But today is Wednesday and TF is not taking place, Tourism Fahrt Nürburgring, and this means one thing. Exactly. This means that there is high performance industry pool where manufacturers get to prepare for any fancy lap times. This means they let out one car every half an hour or 20 minutes, so they have a clear lap for themselves. And since the Corvette has been around here though for the last 2 weeks, it will be interesting to see what it will do. And is that? No, it's not the new M2, but could be also something from BMW. Let's head out and see what we have. Ooh, maybe the new Active Tourer will go for some lap records. I have to disappoint you, the Active Tourer did not set any lap records that day. In fact, it didn't even run. Moreover, once I arrived at the track, there was no activity to be seen. This had to do with the fact that there were some previous accidents, thereby the track was closed because the barriers had to be repaired. But we did see this gem, however. Yes. What do you think the lap time is going to be? It's a Dacia Logan, but even like a wagon. Oh my god. Right, let's get to the point. I waited until roughly 7 o'clock, and knowing that the track is allowed to be open until 7:15 means the last track entry is at 7:15, which has to do with noise regulations, etc. I knew that even if the track would be open in the next few minutes, there would be only one run and there is no way that any car would set any significant lap time because the driver always needs to get used to the car, they need to do some adjustments and some tweaks. So I decided to go to the TF car park, the car park of Tourism Fahrt Nürburgring, the public session Nürburgring, you all know it as Devil's Diner car park. In any case, I went there and this is where I found our hero cars of today's video. Guess those are the new taxis. Looks like we also missed the 765LT. So these two cars, or the two types of cars, because we have on one hand just one McLaren 765LT and on the other hand we have three Chevrolet Corvette Z06s, are very interesting to talk about. So let's talk about them individually, but first let's talk about the type of event that was taking place. Unofficial type of event, although it is official because it's organized by the Nürburgring, but it's only accessible to manufacturers, the so-called high performance industry pool, where the cars are being allowed to go, let's say, more competitively, more freely, to see what the car is capable of, because the cars are being, so to say, unleashed onto the track or set out on the track with intervals between like 10 minutes. And knowing that the average lap time for these type of cars is around 7 minutes, you know that you're definitely going to have an empty track to yourself. However, very important thing to note is that although the manufacturers can time themselves, they can see what the car is obviously capable of by having all kinds of telemetry on board, they are not allowed to communicate this lap time. So whatever they might have set on that day, they cannot go and then tell us, to the world, about this, because for that there are specific lap timing events to make sure that everything is done fair. So there is notary on board. My loyal audience knows how these type of events look like because I made already quite often. I talked about them, so I believe you don't really need introduction. But the only thing what you need to know is whatever would have been that day, they cannot have communicated that there was any type of lap records, if there would have been any lap record or even any significant time, because of course if we think about the Corvette, everyone wants to see it to be the first US car to go under the magical 7-minute mark, and I think the car is capable of that, but more on that later on. But why were these cars there in the first place? And at this point I think we need to look at them separately in separate case, and long story short, there are a lot of speculations, but still speculations are good and they can give us some hope. So let's talk about the McLaren 765LT first. It was very interesting because the car is a factory car. You could see that it has McLaren license plates, and you had people around walking with McLaren official team wear, so it was a factory car. So is 765LT out to set a lap record? I'll be honest with you, although the car is probably capable to go under 7 minutes mark, and again, probably, and I'm just gonna say it right now, because 765LT was slower than 720S around Hockenheimring in the sport auto test. There are lots of speculations why it was the case, maybe because the car was actually a lot more nervous and more hard to drive because of extra horsepower and because of the way the car was set up, but the possibility is there that the car is actually slower than 720S on a racetrack. On a straight line, we know that 765LT is an absolute killer, but I think the car has it in it absolutely to go sub 7. And more importantly, of course, the question, can it beat the absolute lap record of the GT2 RS MR/T equipment of 638 or 643, depending on how you count? I think no, simply because, again, on other tracks the car has proven to be significantly faster than the 765LT. The GT2 RS is of course also being developed on the Nürburgring hardcore, whereas McLaren just comes here once, twice, 3 times a year and still does interesting performance, significant lap times, but no way near the GT2 RS MR. And even if we look into basics, I think the McLaren is also lacking mechanical grip because it has 20mm narrower tires than the GT2 RS on the front and on the rear. The McLaren runs 245 on the front, which is quite suggesting to make it understeer sensitive, because this is something that you can run on your basic hot hatch and on the rear 305, whereas the Porsche runs the 325 on the rear and 265 on the front. And these differences you definitely notice, well, not only on the straight line, but most importantly on the track. The question is then, why is the car there? Well, of course, they could try to go for a lap time, but knowing McLaren's philosophy, I don't think it will happen, because even from the old days of McLaren P1, they only released a video saying like, hey, yes, we did under 7 minutes, but they never mentioned the actual lap time. And this is actually quite often the question, why don't manufacturers actually communicate the lap times even if they do something? And the reality for this is, it's like Hotel California, same goes with the Nürburgring. Once you get in, it's hard to get out. Then you constantly need to play that game, because when you set a lap time, you can be sure of it that at some point it will be beaten, unless we're talking Porsche 919, of course. But when it comes to production cars, after a couple of years, there will be another car, and then you need to come back to prove yourself to be faster, to go faster, and then it's an ongoing game. Moreover, what you also opening sort of can of worms there, because if you market your car as an actual track car, as a Nürburgring car, and the cars of your customers come here on the Nürburgring and start breaking down or not perform as you claim them to be, then you might have some issues, because yeah, well, you market this car as a track car, but it's kind of not really suited for a couple of reasons. Not going to go too much into details there, so it could be tricky. However, they could still run it, because maybe Sport Auto is going out with that car soon to do the super test to see if they can go a sub 7 minutes. Last time with the 720S, I believe they went 708. So again, there's just lots of speculations, but again, there's also another question that many of you have actually asked. Why does McLaren just not take the Senna and go, like, would probably even beat the GT2 RS's lap time? Why? No one knows. Again, probably because of the previous reasons. Maybe someone from marketing department doesn't see it important. Maybe they don't want to get into that game to then actually stick with it and actually have to be there, unfortunately, because it would be cool. Because now finally we see between the Porsche and Mercedes, we see this constant battle of GT2 RS and the Black Series, and hopefully more manufacturers would join. So there are lots of speculations there. We don't know. The car did 1 lap yesterday, but there was a yellow section because the track section, they needed repairs to repair the barriers from the crash. So whatever time the car set, it was irrelevant in terms of the full lap performance, but I'm sure they gathered some data to see what the car was capable of. And as mentioned, hopefully we'll find out soon enough what the car is capable, either in hands of Christian Gebhardt from Sport Auto or from whoever else. As mentioned, I only praise these type of events, and I hope more manufacturers will join. But now let's move on to the other side of car park, where Chevrolet was present with 3 Corvettes, massive film crew, the team full of engineers, a trailer full of tires, their factory race car drivers. So there is a lot more going on, because this would be quite an expensive marketing operation to just like film all of this and say like, hey, we're present at the Nürburgring, that's it. I mean, of course, maybe someone at marketing department just needs to burn through money, and it could have been the case, but I think there's definitely was a lot more planned. However, as mentioned again, it's not officially allowed to communicate any lap time, and I know that also internally there was choice made to not run those cars, although the last 10 minutes it was possible to do so, but someone said we're not going to do so, because if we set 7 minutes 10, somewhere above 7 minutes, it's not going to be sub 7 because there was a yellow flag, but try to explain it to whoever is going to gossip about that lap time. On the other hand, it's also possible that Chevy thought, you know what, forget about the rules, we're just gonna pretend we didn't know and actually set a lap time and just publicize it anyway. This is something that Porsche has done with the Taycan a couple of years ago, after which Tesla, when they came here, Tesla was made well aware that, hey, don't do the same thing that Porsche did, because otherwise there might be some trouble. So again, these are just speculations, and when it comes to speculations, I do want to say that I think the car is definitely capable of going sub 7. The previous Corvette Z06 was very close to it, but they had lots of issues with noise level, so they had to run massive silencers, and because of that the engine was not performing as well. There were lots of, let's say, like backdrops, like setbacks and issues, but now I think they have it pretty much dialed in and figured it out. And even if the car cannot set an overall lap record, but go sub 7, to be the first US car to go sub 7, I think is going to be a massive achievement. And after that, of course, we're also going to have ZR1, and well, we can even speculate even further. But I think at this point there is enough speculations from my side. Let me guys know what you guys think in the comments, what 765LT was doing there, what it can possibly do, what is Z06 going to do. Are you excited for the car? What are your speculations? Whatever is the case, I'm very excited to see those cars back at the Nürburgring for whichever reason they were here in the first place, and set some interesting lap times. But we all know that the next contender or challenger is always already around the corner. Thank you very much for watching, and see you guys in tomorrow's video when something Nürburgring related is going to happen. Bye bye.
Oh yes, a proper race car.